nonprofit organization focused on ensuring everyone has access to clean air, reliable and affordable energy, and a thriving natural environment. We're so excited to be at the first ever CDR Pavilion and to be a part of the CDR 30 Coalition. Carbon is an essential climate priority, and today I will cover how nature-based solutions are a critical part of the broader CDR portfolio. All right, so CDR, I'm going to first talk about the natural carbon cycle. CDR happens naturally through the carbon cycle, which describes how carbon atoms travel through the atmosphere into organic materials such as plants and animals and in oceans and rocks. Let's kind of think about photosynthesis. A plant will store carbon dioxide and draw it out of the atmosphere through photosynthesis, and the plant itself will store the carbon as well as its plant's root system. So while the plant is alive, the CO2 is stored, but when the plant dies, the CO2 is released back into the atmosphere. This is one of the many natural processes of our planet. However, human activity like land use, changes, and fossil fuels release a lot of CO2 into the atmosphere, oversaturating this process. Sorry, I'm still getting used to the mic, trying to figure out where to best place it while I speak. Okay. This is why we need to rapidly decarbonize our society and scale up CDR, including nature-based solutions. So what are nature-based solutions? There are a variety of actions that encompass restoration, conservation, land management practices that increase net carbon sequestration and reduce greenhouse gas emissions in our land sector, from wetlands to forests, agricultural lands, and beyond. These are familiar, proven, and cost-effective practices that are readily scalable, such as expanding composting on farms, planting trees in our cities, and preserving natural development. Preventing natural lands from development. Not only do they remove atmospheric carbon and reduce greenhouse gas emissions, they also create resilience in the face of worsening climate impacts. All right, I have some fun statistics for us. So nature-based solutions work to restore, conserve, and manage natural lands, like I just mentioned, which all of these serve as significant carbon sinks. Oceans absorb 25% of CO2 emissions worldwide, and forests capture 15.6 billion tons of carbon each year. And also, there are 2,400 gigatons of carbon stored in the upper 2 meters of soil globally. The climate crisis threatens ecosystems and disrupts their ability to store carbon. As we know, the ocean is becoming increasingly acidic due to an increase in CO2 concentrations. Forestation and extreme wildfires threaten our forests, and conventional agricultural practices deplete soil carbon. Therefore, it is critical in our fight against climate change to not only protect the remaining natural carbon sinks, but to restore the carbon that has been lost from our ecosystems through degradation. An acknowledgement of the importance of these natural ecosystems, 190 countries signed on the coming Montreal Global Biodiversity Framework in 2022. This includes our goal by 30 by 30, which aims to preserve 30% of the world's lands and waters by 2030. The awareness of nature-based solutions has been growing on a global stage and addresses parallel biodiversity crisis. Okay, so why are nature-based solutions necessary? You've probably heard of a variety of CDR approaches over the past week at this panel, and this pavilion. These can be technological, hybrid, marine-based, etc. We do see them all as important to scale CDR to the gigaton levels needed to stabilize the climate. So what makes nature-based solutions a necessary part of the CDR portfolio? Well, we already are seeing the impacts of the climate crisis around the world, whether through heightened natural disasters, extreme heat, or crop failures. Nature-based solutions can help address these concerns while storing carbon, providing time for further research in technical CDR technologies. and strategies. We're also needing to reduce the peak of temperature of climate change through carbon drawdown. So essentially, they can help us remove carbon in the near term and create community resilience. And who doesn't want that? This already has a lot of social buy-in for these strategies, and as compared to direct air capture or biomass with carbon removal and storage, allowing us to scale these nature-based solutions more quickly. In our experience, there's a broad-scale community support for projects like urban greening, riparian restoration, healthy soil practices, and conservation of green space. It is important to note that these solutions need to be implemented now, before natural lands further degrade. We mentioned the great carbon storage capabilities of natural ecosystems, so let's now focus on the co-benefits that nature-based solutions provide. There are many, but today I'm going to talk about the community resilience aspect of nature-based solutions. They can help ensure food security. An increase in soil organic carbon can protect crops from drought, as healthy soils can retain more water for longer amounts of time. As we face extreme heat and prolonged drought, there will be a critical importance to ensuring that we have global food supply that remains secure. And the Healthy Soils program in California is one of the programs that supports this. Nature-based solutions can also help protect us from extreme weather. Healthy mangroves and wetlands can protect communities from the worst effects of hurricanes. Prescribed burns, defensible space, and fuel breaks can reduce the spread and impact of extreme wildfires. Shade trees along sidewalks can protect individuals from extreme heat by as much as 25 degrees. I live in Sacramento, California, where we have urban greening trees throughout our city, and it makes our 100+ days bearable. It's quite hot. There are also other nature-based solutions also support clean air and water. For example, local air and water quality is significantly important with the use of healthy soils. Practices such as cover crops, compost, or as compared to the chemically intensive pesticides and fertilizers. Altogether, these create healthy and resilient communities, access to natural and green spaces, nutritious food, clean air, better and protection from our natural disasters allows people to live better lives, even in the face of changing climate. And they're all doing this, and the nature-based solutions do this, while also removing carbon from our atmosphere. Okay, there are many kinds of nature-based solutions, and they all fall in some broad categories. 3 I want to talk about is reforestation, restoration, and then conservation. Reforestation is planting ecological relevant trees to undo harms from forest or wildfire. Restoration is restoring degraded lands. For example, restoring mountain meadows is a restoration practice that maintains and enhances critical ecosystem services such as water storage and filtration. And then the third, conservation, it prevents natural lands from being developed. So some more examples. I'm going to talk about stewardship. It's not enough to just plant trees and move on. You have to actively manage the land so that they do not degrade. An example of this is prescribed burns, which in California is very relevant because we have a ton of fires. And this will help prevent forests from suffering from those high-intensity fires. Another is building soil organic carbon. This is an agricultural practice that helps increase carbon in our soils. And this can include cover crops, agroforestry, no-till farming, and compost. Urban greening is another that is really important. It is adding greenery into our urban areas. Like I talked about living in Sacramento, where the trees along the street help lower the temperatures. Some other examples of urban greening are green spaces, parks, green belts, and rain gardens. And then also blue carbon. This is managing peatlands and coastal areas, such as wetlands and kelp forests, so that they can continue to store carbon and be great carbon sinks that they are. So the importance of nature-based solutions has been recognized at the international level, which I talked about earlier, and California has also taken steps to scale these solutions across the state. So a bill that passed in 2022, the bill AB 1757, it sets 81 different acreage targets for scaling these solutions across the state by 2045. And these projects are subject to rigorous measurements and verification requirements. Nature-based solutions are funded through very few sources, such as grant programs, which are usually funded through the California Cap and Invest program. Projects funded through this program span across forestry, wildfire mitigation, urban greening, wetland restoration, coastal resiliency planning, and the Healthy Soils program I mentioned earlier. So, while there are many co-benefits associated with implementing nature-based solutions, we should discuss some of the drawbacks and how we should move forward with them. There are two main concerns with nature-based solutions, which are permanence and how they are measured, reported, and verified, also known as MRV. Permanence concerns stem from the issue that CO2 stored in plants and soils can be lost due to wildfire, drought, or disease. And this is a real concern. The wildfire that spread through Los Angeles earlier this year released more carbon pollution than passenger vehicles did in an entire month. We know that the climate crisis is already impacting the land's ability to sequester carbon, which makes it much more important to maintain the carbon stocks we do know we have and enhance them as much as we can. There are also concerns with the MRV of nature-based solutions, as the complexity of ecosystems makes it challenging to precisely calculate how much CO2 is stored, as compared to the technological solutions like direct air capture. For example, the carbon stored in soil on a farm can vary from acre to acre. So since we need projects with high quality MRV, this can undermine nature-based solutions. But there is, a positive note, there is a lot of research being done, and so we're excited to see what comes out and how we might be able to incorporate that in California. So even with these drawbacks, nature-based solutions are essential to the CDR portfolio, and there are ways to address these concerns. First is stewardship of natural lands that can help us address concerns of reversibility. As we mentioned earlier, utilizing prescribed burns and establishing fuel breaks, as well as restoring natural lands such as meadows, can reduce the intensity of wildfires and prevent much of the reversibility I mentioned earlier. Second, there are innovative financing tools such as buffer pools or credit stacking. Buffer pools are a sort of savings account for carbon credits if there is a loss of carbon. Essentially, it's a percentage of issued credits from projects that are aggregated into a central credit pool to be used to compensate for reversal when there is a natural disaster, such as a wildfire. Credit stacking refers to the practice of a buyer purchasing multiple short-term carbon credits to achieve 100 years of permanence. A company can buy multiple credits over time through a horizontal stacking, or buy multiple credits all at once, which is vertical stacking. Finally, it's really important to stress we need a portfolio of CDR solutions, and to not rely only on one approach to minimize the risk of all approaches. And we need to take advantage of the multitude of benefits of each solution. So what's next? With all of the information in mind, how can we advance nature-based solutions as part of our CDR portfolio? There are many ways to ensure nature-based solutions are a part of the CDR portfolio, and I want to talk about 4, all of which will help scale these solutions, provide carbon storage, and support resilient communities. The first is scaling nature-based solutions while researching nascent CDR technologies. These solutions are cost-effective and readily available, nature-based solutions. And we can use them now while we research additional CDR approaches and how to deploy them responsibly. We also must support a portfolio of CDR approaches that include nature-based solutions, hybrid, and industrial CDR solutions. This portfolio can help us scale the gigatons of carbon removal we need while mitigating the risk associated with CDR approach. We also must identify how nature-based solutions can work alongside CDR approaches. For example, you can have biochar alongside a regenerative agricultural practice. You can do multiple things at once, and we shouldn't have them in silos. We should, however, set separate target emissions for reductions for nature-based solutions and industrial CDR. separate targets can help us ensure that emission reductions remain the primary focus for legislation, and that neither nature-based solutions or industrial approaches overshadow one another and creating a broader portfolio. And lastly, I just want to emphasize again and stress how important it is to have a portfolio of CDR solutions, and we cannot rely on only one approach to minimize the risk of all approaches, and we must take advantage of the multitude of benefits of each solution that is available. I'm now going to open up for any questions. Yeah.
Hello. First of all, thank you so much for your presentation. It was very clear, very educative. My question is, because I studied before a little bit about private and public lands, and one concern that I have is, for example, in a private land, if an owner die or something happen, and he changes his mind, so how can you ensure that the land will be continuing used for NBS?
So my understanding is you're talking a little bit about the permanence issue, is if things change. No.
Yeah, it's a permanent issue, but it's also about like the human behavior towards permanence.
The human behavior towards permanence. I'm not sure if I'm the best to speak about the human relationship with permanence. I know that permanence is a real issue, and that's something that we're working on and trying to figure out how we can address that. But I do have the contact information for our two subject matter experts, Bonnie Benewall and Katie Webb there, so definitely reach out to them to be able to answer that question. I focus more on the policy. I think maybe we could put some policy guardrails in place to make sure that we can address the permanence issue. Any other questions?
So I'm very interested about the nature-based solutions, and I was really happy to see that you were like no silver bullets, because I really believe that as well, and I think that in a way that's why we have all the pathways here. But you were saying about like different targets with biochar and nature-based solutions and how they integrate with each other, and my question is, how do you set the separate targets, and how do you calculate how much will come from biochar and how much will come from the nature? So how can you separate those?
Another great question about separating the targets. So I know that for California, we do have a bill that passed, AB 1757, and it passed in 2022, and it sets acreage targets, and there's 81 different targets within that. But to look at the different specific programs, I think there needs to be a lot of research to be able to measure MRV them so that we can actually have set targets and account for them more efficiently. Any other questions?
Sorry, I wasn't here when you started, so I don't know if this question really falls within what your presentation was about. But I wanted to ask you a question in relation to justice. When you're talking about CDR, in relation to justice, if you're talking about nature-based solutions and all of that, how do we ensure that vulnerable groups are protected on this? Thank you.
That is a wonderful question. I know that a lot of nature-based solutions try to engage with the local community around them and have, I believe they're called community engagement contracts. That might not be the right terminology, but there is definite stakeholder input for whatever the project is going to be. And I think that needs to be definitely implemented even further, because it's important for the folks whose land it is to have a say and make sure that no one is being disproportionately affected by whatever the project that is going in. Any other questions? Thank you so much.